It is the largest Australian rules football tournament anywhere in the world, and for the 27th year, it will be held here in the USA, featuring more than 1,000 athletes, and this year they will come to the city of Austin, Texas, to determine who is the best of the best in the sport of Aussie rules football here in the USA. It's the 2024 USAFL Nationals, and to determine who will play whom, we present to you the Divisional Draw Show. Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Barrish. Great to have you along here to determine the seedings of the divisions and everything else. And, this is the culmination of 6 months of training and games and in the hot weather and in some places in the cold weather and the rainy weather and all that other stuff. And it all boils down to 2 days at the Onion Creek Soccer Complex in Austin, Texas. We will go through all 7 divisions. We have 45 clubs participating. We will break down each and every one of them. And as much as I know everybody loves hearing my voice, we have 2 co-hosts, and we'll introduce them to you. Breaking down the men's divisions, we introduce him as the brand new head of the USAFL international program, Mr. Dan Sarbacker. Dan, firstly, congratulations on the appointment, and how are you this evening?
I'm good. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me along, and thanks for acknowledging the brand new news. I think it went out, the PR went out this afternoon, maybe about 7 hours ago. So
right on my lunch break.
Yep.
And to help us dissect the women's divisions, the 2 women's divisions, she's the president of the U.S. Australian Football League. She is a national team player. She has played not only here and in Australia, and she is, she's awesome. That's all you need to know about April Munn. April, thank you so much for joining us. How are you this evening?
Thank you, Brian. Doing really well. Happy to be here and join you for the seating event live tonight.
And I want to just recognize you for all the work you've done in terms of helping the women's divisions grow. I know the numbers have been about steady, but we've had a lot of great action during the course of this year, and it's been a big year, especially with the national team.
Absolutely. We've had some great opportunities to play football. Some of our teams have traveled a long way to play football, and looking forward to really good competition again this year at Nationals.
Me too, and we will have about 80 games or so on across 5 fields of play, and we will be bringing those to you. If I click my little clicker here. There we go. Before we get underway, of course, we want to acknowledge our sponsors, including our friends at Tasmanian, Cooper's Beer, which has been a major sponsor of the Nationals since 2000, Odin Mortgage, which you have seen across the top 20 and top 10 women's polls, Visit Austin, who are welcoming us now for the 5th time, the USAFL Foundation, CyberSolve IQ, Aussie Sports USA, Play Aussie, Watch AFL, which sponsors our scoreboards, Total Beverage Solutions, which gives us the Cooper's Beer with which we drink, the Australian Council General in Houston, and 3 Cuts Gin. Now, we started to talk about watching the games. We are excited to welcome back Gridiron Productions. For the 2nd consecutive year, Kevin and his crew will be traveling from Florida to bring you a record 38 matches across the 2 days. Coverage begins at 8 a.m. Central Time on Saturday and Sunday. That's how jam-packed the divisions are here in 2024. We'll also tell you that back in, if you're watching us in Australia, that'll be an 11 p.m. start on both nights. And we hope that you can either stay up or catch us on the replay as well. All right, on to the divisions now, and we'll give you the divisional breakdown. As we mentioned, 45 teams in all. 6 teams in men's Division 1, down from 8 the previous year, but we'll explain why that will make things a little bit more exciting. 4 teams again in Women's Division 1, just like last year. 5 teams in Women's Division 2. Men's Divisions 2, 3, and 4 will have 8 teams each. Men's Division 5 this is a little historic. It's the first time we've had an honest-to-goodness fifth division. It's not a reserves division. This is a 14-a-side division, and it will feature 6 teams. So that will be really exciting, and we will get into that in a little bit. Now, as we get into the seeding criteria, we will tell you that this has been worked on by over the last couple of weeks, the Nationals Seating Committee, chaired by Nationals Director and USAFL Executive Director Doran James, and also members of the USAFL Board. April is sitting on that committee. I'm on that, a consultant on that committee. And some of the criteria, as in past years: season record, historical results, where teams have played in previous seasons, the numbers, the amount of players that a team is bringing, and of course making sure there is competitive balance in combinations. And speaking of those combinations, you see everything is underlined there, that everything you are seeing tonight is subject to change, because people, for various reasons, of course, folks dropping out, and a number of different things. So that is something to keep in mind. All right, let's without further ado, let us get into it. And Dan Sarbacker and I will take a look at men's Division I. As we mentioned, there's 6 teams. And this is the last time there were 6 teams in Division I was 2021. Same format as then, 2 groups of 3 teams each. They'll play 2 group games on Saturday, with the top 2 in each division advancing, or in each pool rather, advancing to the semifinals. The winner of each group will play the runner-up in the other one. And then, of course, the 2 teams in that finish in third will play in a consolation match on Saturday morning. And SARS, I mentioned that this is exciting. When you go through the normal 8-team format, ideally, if everything holds to form, then you end up with essentially a virtual semifinal on Sunday morning between the top 2 in the group. But this is an actual bona fide semifinal, and I feel like that ratchets up the excitement a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of, as you mentioned, like if the seedings are accurate and the clubs perform the way we think they do as they get seeded, you do have that de facto semifinal on Sunday morning in an 8-team pool. In this case, though, still the opportunity to drop in a game on Saturday to finish in that second spot. You can still battle back through the semifinal and make the grand final Sunday afternoon. So, yeah, I think stakes get higher right away Sunday morning. You certainly don't have those 2-0 teams from Saturday that potentially maybe have already snuck through based on the other results. So this 6-team format's really ratcheting things up, and I think these 6-team divisions will be fun to watch. Those Sunday morning matches could be really hotly contested.
And we've seen on a couple of occasions, and I can think of the 2021 men's grand final and the 2019 women's grand final, where there were group rematches in the final. All right, let's get to it. If I click my thing here. All right, here we go. Men's Division I. And, this will probably be the least surprising thing of all. The number 1 overall seed, the Austin Crows, a 9-0 record. They are going for their 6th consecutive national championship, a record-setting 9th national championship. They are currently tied with Denver. And SARS, this is a team, they're playing at home. They're really good at home. They've never lost they were the runners-up in 2011. They lost to Dallas in D2. But every time they get into a grand final, they win, and they're going to have a deep team because they're at home.
Yeah, there's no surprise here, them being ranked in the top overall position. I think the thing to watch is are they continuing on their way up, which makes it harder and harder for the rest of the competition to compete. I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of credit. We combined with Austin when I was still in St. Louis in 2008, and their upward trajectory since then has been extraordinary. So the 8 and potentially 9 national titles, I'm gonna take credit for at least a portion of that and getting them off on the right foot. But good on those guys. Great season this year, and they are in the pole position.
And I played against you and the Blows, because they were a combination of the St. Louis Blues and the Crows that year. They are 31-3 in Division One, and they come in with a 21-game Nationals win streak. They won't have Michael Linehan, who did suffer an injury. It sounds like he probably will miss Nationals. I'm sure they'll correct me if I'm wrong, but of course Nolan Cox, Zach McKinney, and Sam Gelati as well. Second seed is the New York Magpies. The Pies, 6-2 season, champions in 2010 and 2014. And this, they're a team that I think had bounced in the poll between 4th and 5th. A team that, of course, has a lot of good Americans. I think about Magic Murphy. I think about Tim Arkelian. But also a lot of talented Australians. Adam Buddy Franklin, Connor Delves. New York is kind of on the fringes. They went to the final in 2021. SARS. They always think they're in every year.
Yeah, perennial contenders. I think that's never in doubt, and a really exceptional club, probably the biggest social club I think in the United States. And so they wrap their football in a lot of other activities, and so expect large crowds on the sidelines for them. A lot of cheering and stuff. So they'll be backing the boys on the field for sure.
Third seed in Pool A, rounding them out, is Les Sens de Quebec. Twice national champions in Division Two. They finished in 7th of the 18 field in Division One a season ago. And they're a team that generally, sometimes these Canadian teams are a bit of a mystery, especially, the teams on the Central and the West Coast. They have played the Magpies so far this season. In fact, the Magpies went up to Montreal. They have a national team talent, Kenneth Boudreau, who played a season ago, Ronan Shaughnessy, Bogdan Rotaru. It's interesting because it's interesting because they always seem to play tough, and they're never afraid of the challenge up in Division One.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Brian, a bit of an unknown. There's fewer data points, and across the U.S. geographically, we're so large. We've got not that many data points anyway with the teams here in the U.S. But for our friends to the north, yeah, a bit of an unknown. But they certainly held their own in Division One in the past, and expect them to turn up, regardless of what we know about them or limited data points. So watch those matches when they happen, because these are bound to be good ones.
Austin, New York, and Quebec in Pool A, 2 of those 3 teams onto the semifinals. Pool B, runners-up in 2019, 2021, 2022, and last year. 8-time national champions in addition with the Crows. It's the Denver Bulldogs. A bit of a down year record-wise at 6-4. They did lose at home to Austin last week. A team that have known for their Australian talent. Guys like Lockie Fleet and McMahon and Matty Howell, Daniel Duffield, but some good American talent. Max Eckstein, who's been around a while, Luke Durkin, Nick Moretto as well. And Denver, again, they're Denver, and you've gone up against them and you've seen them a lot in your time, SARS.
Yeah, obviously the class of the USAFL from some of the earlier years, they racked up all those national titles. The big question is, can they get over the disappointment that was Marcus Bontempelli's polling in the Brownlow the other night? But joking aside, like a quality club, and they've been perennial contenders. Never count them out. I think a lot of people might tip them and Austin in the finals again. Can they get over this time? I don't know. They probably have had a better midfield, but Austin has found ways to nullify that and sneak out victories the last couple.
Well, one team that will have something to say about it is the second seed in Pool B. The Golden Gate Roos were undefeated up until this past weekend in Denver, and another team. We talk about a lot of the national teamers and the Australians and whatnot. But what really made them go, SARS, is the Americans. Tim Linfelt, Dan Livy, who made all TAC, the all Transatlantic Cup team, and was the captain of the team. David Franco, a veteran. They won't have Moose Taylor, who hurt his Achilles in the, I believe it was in the Ireland game, again, the first Ireland game. But another player to watch out for is Daniel Infanson. the Roos have to be thinking that they're the top seed in Pool B, considering how well they've done this season against tough competition, including winning the Western Regionals.
Yeah, it's another side you absolutely cannot count out, and you called out a lot of the right names. A lot of depth on their roster from the national team program. You mentioned Dan Livy, and a shout out to Dan in his efforts in the Transatlantic Cup. So good on you for that, and the recognition you got there. I coached Dan when he was coming up through the reserves in the Revolution program, the development side, over a decade ago. And I'll tell you what, he is just getting to be a better footballer every single year, and his command of the game is phenomenal. So, you can't sleep on them if he's running the show in the middle and got a lot of that talent around him.
And rounding out Pool B, hey, we have a debutante in Division I, the defending Division II national champion, Sacramento Suns, and they won it by the hair of their chinny chin chin over Seattle a season ago. And they took Golden Gate right to the bell in the Western Regionals. Really, I mean, the game was up for grabs up until the second half there, and they're coming off of a season that saw three of their guys make it to the national team. Eric Anderson, who was a standout player, Julian David, who did well up front, Rabbit Hutchings, who was all over the place. A couple of one name to keep an eye on, Cody McGilligan, who is on I believe he was on the reserve side as well. This is their first foray into Division I, SARS. I think it'll be a good litmus test.
I'm just tickled they're up there. They got a taste hanging another flag last year. You can see, looking back on the history of that club, they've been building, I think, Division III champs in 2014. So 10 years ago since that flag, that club has just been built and grown and built and grown. And the fact that they're cracking into Division I this year should be super exciting for those guys. I know it's exciting for all of us to get to watch. And again, some depth on the national team, and they'll be competitors there. Again, they got a sniff last year. They a taste of that flag. They might want to hang another one.
Yeah, and you know what? What's interesting, you look at these teams and you're like, well, Austin's playing at home. You've got four teams up top that they're perennial there. But as we said, Quebec will not back down, and Sacramento, look, they'll be in Golden Gate's group. They're used to playing Golden Gate. They're used to playing Denver. It's easy to pencil in those four teams, SARS, but that's what's so great about nationals is you never know.
Well, that's it. And again, why a 6-team draw is so appealing. Those Sunday morning games, those actual semifinals will be really interesting. So those matches Saturday, if you're floating around the Division I field, have a peek because this is a really, really, really interesting draw. Like you said, with the debutante, Sacramento may be the last seed here, but I certainly wouldn't sleep on them because they're as competitive as can be, and they've seen a number of these teams already.
Yeah, indeed, and it'll be interesting to see. I don't know what happened. There we go. I don't know what it'll be interesting to see, and I'll say get your seat there by the by Cooper's Field to watch all the matches. So again, Austin, New York, and Quebec in Pool A. Denver, Golden Gate, and Sacramento. We do appreciate everybody talking in the chat. We love to hear from you. I don't know about meat pies. You're asking the wrong guy. Maybe April can fill us in as to whether or not there will be meat pies at Nationals this year. And also, do I need to go, if you could tell me whether I need to make my mic louder or softer because I can't hear the feedback. So there's that. So let's move on now from the men's divisions on to, before we do that, here once again is what it would happen to the Premiership title listing. If the Crows win, they would go on to the top of the table. If the Bulldogs do it, of course, they would go to the top with 9. The Magpies in search of their 3rd national championship after making it in 2010 and 2014. Of course, they were grand finalists in 2012. And the Roos, of course, finally getting to the top over LA in 2017. So we'll see what this does. All right, let's head to the women's division, and we'll bring in April Munn. And this is the same as last year. It's a 4-team group, 3 games in a round robin. The first round will determine the rest of the schedule. The winners will play off in round 2. The losers will do the same. and then the third round will be determined by the remaining matchup, and then we'll have essentially a rematch between the top two teams in the grand final. And April, what I love about this, especially, you look at Minnesota and Golden Gate last year. The Freeze beat the Iron Maidens in the round robin fashion, and everybody thought, the Freeze look really good and they're gonna have a chance. And then we head to the grand final, and the Iron Maidens just pipped them right at the end to hang on.
Yeah, that the beauty of this format, so 4 teams, fluctuating schedule dependent on the results of Saturday, it can be really exciting. Every game matters, and the most interesting thing about it is every single team has the same path to winning a championship, which is unique in its own because when you win that grand final, you've earned it by playing each of the top other sides in the competition. So, and exactly like you said, grand finals bring a different type of energy, and it's really exciting for the women's competition at this point in time.
It really is, especially when you have 4 teams, and we're going to get into it right now, 4 teams that are really, really, I think they bring different styles and whatnot, and it'll be interesting to see how they come. But let's take a look at the teams. And I don't remember, April, the last time that we opened this up with a team with a different team at the top. That the overall number 1 seed in the women's division 1, is the Minnesota Freeze. An unbeaten season with 6 victories. They defeated the Golden Gate Iron Maidens to win the Western Regionals to go with their Super Regional Championship. 9 national teamers, including Lindsay Beck, who is formerly Lindsay Eliason, who made the Transatlantic Cup team. Look at Connor Lewis, Kaya Saigula, a couple of players who have won individual honors in the past. Sophie Pfluger, a good young talent as well, to go with Kathy Oa and Catherine Georgiadis. And Minnesota has really been training for the last couple of years to get over the next level. Is this their year? That will be the question.
That's the mystery question, right? But I think if you look at the strength and depth of the roster and consider former national team players, you're looking at 13 to 14 rather than just the 9 that you mentioned that competed at Transatlantic Cup this year. And with that kind of depth and their interesting style of play, they like to move the ball fast, straight up the guts. It's going to be a very tough competitor, and they're on the hunt for a national championship.
They're very, very hungry. Their logo is a Yeti, and I think that Yeti is mad in a sense. And yeah, they've been really. Look, I don't know if very few teams have put in. A lot of teams put in the work. They've been very, very open. I think showing the rest of the team that they mean business. Who's in the second seed? But the Golden Gate Iron Maidens, the 7-time national champions on the trot, looking for number 8. 3-2 overall this season. They did not, in fact, they fell to Minnesota in the Western Regional Final, and they've lost a number of players to retirement. Katie Klatt is now behind the bench, but there's still talent on this team. Panda Wynn in the middle. Carol Sequeira, who played very well in the national team this season. Leilani Cordoba, Leo Gaillard, Alvi Doherty, Sarah Maggione, and Nicole McKenzie, who's won a number of awards at that level. Nobody is ready to write the Iron Maidens off quite yet.
Absolutely. I wouldn't count out Jess Blecker, who I think you didn't mention, but this is a team that, it's a little bit different this year, absolutely, but not to be written off in any regard, especially, with the strength of Katie Klatt coaching now. You've got to think that they're working together in unison, and they don't want to, sacrifice that streak, right? They're going to be hungrier than ever this year, and it'll be really exciting to watch them play, in this division across all of the games.
And I think them being in Division 2, being the second seed, I think that might spur them on a little bit more towards maybe keeping their streak and upsetting the possible Minnesota coronation. Well, as good as those two teams are, How about April's Seattle Grizzlies? They have been tempered by some very strong competition in the Pacific Northwest. Not just their victory this past weekend in the Stumptown Throwdown, but also combining alongside the Burnaby Eagles in the BCAFL, as well as a pretty good showing in the Western Regionals. What I love about this is, you talk about the number of national team players that you guys have. Of course, April herself playing extremely well in the forward line during the Transatlantic Cup. Amy Carr across the back line. Kelly Caskew, who played exceptionally well in the back line. Amanda Bowe, who had 3 goals in the grand final in the losing effort. And then you bring in Anna Brancati, the captain of the national team. Well, one thing I do like as well is you have a couple of young players. I think of Zoe Bartlett, Brooke Jennings, Alicia Evans, an example. The Grizzlies, if you have to pick a dark horse, and it's only a 4-team field, but you can't count out the Grizzlies either.
I think we have been on the hunt and in this division very regularly, making grand final appearances and right on the cusp for the past 6 years. And hungrier than ever, I'd say, is how I could summarize the training vibes and being a part of this team this year. And that hasn't changed. So we expect to be tough components on either day for whichever clubs we're up against, depending on the day.
Yep. And the fourth of those clubs, we have a situation where we have a combined team in Women's Division I for the first time. It's the Denver Bulldogs, and they will be accompanied by players from the New York Magpies. I would say, and I didn't do the mathematics before this, I think it's about a 60-40 split, or maybe a little bit more than that. But if you look at the players on this team, April, again, we go back to the national teamers, Allie Dykes, who played on both sides of the field. You have both Castanics, Hallie, who was at the national team, who played in the Transatlantic Cup, Lindsay, who's a veteran, one of the co-captains of the national team in Allison Leonard, Kylie Hahn, who played very well in the ruck against good competition, Rita Hill, who's a speedster. Then you add in the height of Cricket Temple. You bring in the defensive mindedness of Lucy McLeod, the defending D2 best and fairest in Janie Green. This is going to be a tough team as well.
Oh, absolutely. You've got with Denver, you've got just the foundational club environment with some really experienced players. You've got speed, you've got height, you've got talent and natural ability. And then you also have the Australian contingent from New York and some national team players. And it should be a really exciting combination. And I would not count them out. I think, especially in that round robin play, every game is important, every head-to-head matchup, and it should be really exciting.
Exactly. And I think, we see this there's only, like you said at the top, April, all these teams have to go through each other they all have the same path to get to that grand final and lift it. And I'm interested to see. I think we're looking at 8 really, really tight, well-fought games. Here is the schedule for the opening round. Minnesota will play Denver/New York in their opening round matchup. Golden Gate will play Seattle. And again, the winners of those 2 games will face off in round 2, with the remaining matchup. Of course, the losers will face off in round 2 as well. The remaining matchup will be round 3. And what I love about this format, and really, again, we may see Minnesota and Golden Gate again. Of course, Denver and Seattle will have something to say about that. But one thing also as well, Minnesota has beaten Golden Gate in 2 out of the last 3 matchups. So Minnesota, Golden Gate, Seattle, and then Denver and New York, and in Women's Division I. All right, back to Dan. Well, I forgot I put this slide in once again. And there you see the Iron Maidens with their victory a season ago. 7 national championships, all of them in a row since 2016. The Denver Bulldogs had 6 national championships. They'll want to tie the Maidens. And then it's interesting, you had those 3 in a row from Atlanta, and then Calgary and Milwaukee winning one-offs before the Denver/Golden Gate dynasty over the last 13 seasons, I can add. All right, now we head back to the men's, and Dan Sarbacker, we bring you in for men's Division II. This is the standard. This is the standard 8-team division or 8-team format. There will be 2 groups of 4 teams each. They'll play the round robin on Saturday and Sunday, and the top team in each group will go on to the grand final on Sunday afternoon. Are you ready for D2, SARS?
Let's roll.
All right, we begin with the number 1 overall seed in men's Division II, the team that came very, very close. Did I forget to change that? I forgot to change that. Hang on one second. It is not the Sacramento Suns. Sorry about that. It is, in fact, the Seattle Grizzlies, who are the top seed in men's Division I. They came awfully, awfully close. They came just 3 points short a season ago to winning. They were down right at the end, and they came from behind. They, too, were the minor premiers in the BCAFL. They're going to have a couple of Canadian national teamers in Jim Ortel, Trent Loosemore to go alongside Rob Munn, Saleh Taibji, and they discovered a guy by the name of Banksy who won Best on Ground. Seattle will be hurting after last season, and I think they'll be itching to win their first Division II championship in 15 years.
Yeah, probably a redemption campaign for them, coming as close as they did last year. As you mentioned, plenty of national team depth, and that's not just U.S. national team, Canadian national team as well. So some class from north of the border. Top seed, no surprise here. I think they've had a really great season and a ton of strength there.
Yeah, indeed. And there you go. I fixed it. Sorry, Seattle. I think they've been really one of the best. I think they've been a fantastic watching their growth over the last few years. 10 years ago they were seemingly breathing their last, and now they are amongst the best teams on the. They're right up there. They're in and of course top seed in Division II. The second seed in the group and the 4th overall, the Dock Show, the Baltimore Dockers, led by the likes of Val Caff and Jesse Galston, Nick Siska, Mike Horney, who's somewhere here in the chat, as well as a pretty good core of Australians in Albert Kobe, Jack Super Nintendo Chalmers, former Philadelphia Hawk, Bryn Hansen, 9-4. They finished in 3rd in Division II a season ago. This is a team that works really, really hard.
Yeah, and getting the games they get in the Eastern Division where they're seeing a ton of high caliber competition, and so I'm really interested to see, in particular, this matchup: Seattle and Baltimore, the East Coast and the West Coast clashing. I don't know that they've had any data points this year, so that's the sort of stuff I love about nationals: is getting these high caliber clubs together that have really, really respectable records in their own regions, but then coming together at nationals for a battle.
Pretty successful over DC and Philadelphia during the course of the season. And they're the Dockers Division II. They won. They went from Division IV national champions in 2018. 2 years later, or the next season, they went all the way to the grand final and took San Diego really all the way down to the wire before the Lions got up. But the Dockers, second seed in this Pool A in Division II. The third seed, that is the Austin Cruz reserves team. They are bringing enough for essentially 2.5. And we talked about how good they are in Division I. They've got a lot of depth, and they really turned out they're bringing something along the lines of like 55 players, almost 60 players. This team here, this reserve side, they might have a shout after winning the reserves division a season ago.
Yeah, the advantage of being at home, right? Those numbers come just a little bit easier without the burden of travel. But good on Austin. The depth in the player list for them is just extraordinary, and to have that caliber of a side up in Division II is wonderful. Just absolutely thrilled to see them putting up those kind of numbers. I know a lot of clubs in their growth patterns struggle to get over the mark with a full reserve side, and the fact that Austin's got one here and this competitively at nationals is fantastic.
And rounding out Pool A, the Columbus Cats Division II champions in 2013 when they were known as the Jackaroos, runners-up before falling to Boston in 2019 in Division III. A mostly American side, couple of Aussies here and there, but a lot of veterans. Stork McClure, who is the goal-kicking leader in the Transatlantic Cup, we had 10 in 5 games. Clyde Simpson, who was on the national team, and then guys who have been in that system over the last couple of years, a couple of up-and-comers in John Ziegler and Chase Beardsley. They play very hard-nosed football, the Cats. Playing up in Division II, I think they were on that D2, D3 Cup, but cusp. Cup? What? But I think they'll, especially a team like Baltimore, I think they'll challenge pretty well. What do you think?
Yeah, a lot of depth here. Again, you mentioned some of the national team guys. Shout out to Stork and Clyde, who I played with at the tail end of my career. Great to see them still going and having as big of an impact as they are. But look, Brian, you and I called some of these games at the regional, and Columbus was hosting there, and I think they were probably a little disappointed they didn't go deeper into that tournament than they did. Certainly have plenty of talent, just maybe didn't quite click for them back in June, but here's their chance, right? In Division II, I think this is a great division for them to do some damage and potentially pick up some wins to get them through to the final.
And having played against a lot of those guys at the end of my career with the Philadelphia Hawks, I think they might think that they were a little bit higher and they're going to be out to prove it. So Seattle, Baltimore, that's Austin Reserves as the 3 seed and Columbus in Pool A. At the top of Pool B, the Boston Demons, a team that is about 50-50 when it comes to Australians and Americans. They were D3 champions in 2019, Division II champions a season ago, finished 5th in D1 last year and dropping down here. A lot of Australian talent. Patrick Keane, Matty Young, Jared Fernandez, who's always around the ball up front, but a lot of veterans, guys like Mike Matera. I think Mike was playing all season. Another guy was playing when I was playing. Luke Hemingway, who's done well. Boston is at the top. They have played extremely well. They beat New York at home a couple of weeks ago. The Demons, this might be a chance for them to win another D2 title.
The real deal, I think, here. Again, the competition they're getting in that East Coast Division, the close proximity, geography-wise, with some of those clubs, and the fact that the quality wins that they've got. You mentioned one of them there, Brian. I think this might be a year for them. They've been a top-notch side for 25 years, long history of playing in Division I, and so they've certainly had the class and the talent over the years. So that this could be a top side in Division II this year.
Yeah, they really are, and of course, I think that's Bob Gravel who mentioned the Maine Cats as well. Great job, growing that program in Portland, Maine, alongside the Boston Demons, who are the top seed in Pool B. The second seed is the San Diego Lions. They finished 8th in Division I a season ago, but again, this is a club that is starting to look like the team of old when they won those 2 national championships and really were the thorn in the Denver Bulldogs SoCal Cup champions this season, after winning in 2019 in Division III and coming runner-up in Division III a couple of years ago. Justin Valley, who was a coach on the national team this season, still a pretty good player in his own right. Guys like John Carpenter, Tony Ballas. Also wrote down the name of Spencer Drobnik. The Lions starting to look like the Lions of old, Sars.
Yeah, here is another club with a long history of really quality sides in the tournament and collecting some hardware and hanging some banners. Again, I mentioned earlier, I love the opportunities to see these clubs that don't have data points yet, but Boston and San Diego at the top of this division, that's a juicy East Coast and West Coast matchup. Can't wait to see that one play out.
Yeah, I do love, and that's one of the things, and that's also something you look at some of these and you think, well, maybe seeding and whatnot. One of the things that the National Seeding Committee does is to try and make sure, not all the time, but on a lot of occasions, the teams that are located next to each other don't play. I mean, why would you want to travel all the way across the country, or halfway across the country, to play a team that you normally play. So it's good to see the Lions in there, and it'd be interesting to see how they do. I love that two teams that were very good in the first decade of the USAFL. Third seed in Division III. There we go. The DC Eagles. Speaking of East Coast, the Eagles, they beat Baltimore last week, I believe, in a Dennis Ryan Cup match. Division II champions in 2021 came back down to Division II to finish in fourth. 6 wins, 6.5 losses. They have 4 guys in the national program: Luke Meyer, Kansas; Alex Foster, who played strongly in the forward line. Meyer had a great series at the Transatlantic Cup. Zane Zovac, Bernie Burgess as well. Burgess was, I believe, trying to think, I think he ended up winning. He won one of the awards at the Super Regionals. But then you've got guys like Tom Matthew and Paul Ashear as well. A good, quick team, and you and I watched them a couple of times at the Super Regionals. SARS, I think they can make some noise in this pool as well.
Yeah, 100%. Really exciting to watch them in June. I want to see, how that side has improved and adjustments they've made that maybe make that step forward. The fact that Baltimore is in the other half of this division from DC, I think, both those clubs got to be thinking, oh man, just give me a shot at them at the title. So maybe a little extra incentive for the DC club to win this pool.
Yeah, I think it'll be exciting. They'll have that as a carrot, but I also think that game against Boston, they're old rivals. I remember first coming into the league when Boston and Baltimore, Washington, as they were then known, really went up, really were challenging each other, and New York finally came on a little bit more strongly towards the end of that decade. So the 4th team in Pool B, the 7th overall, rounding out Division II, the Houston Lone Stars, an 8-2 season for them down south, finishing 6th a season ago, and a lot of the usual suspects, guys like Carrie Nolan and the national team, the Australian veterans, Jared Rexilius, the former Dallas Magpie as it was then, Andrew Craig as well, to go alongside Americans such as Chance Meyer and I forgot his first name, Carcamo, for Houston. This is a team, they always end up in Division II. They always give teams fits. They're still waiting to take that next step up.
Yeah, but talk about a club that's really grown the right way. I'm so impressed with what Houston's gotten done. Over a decade now, but really starting from next to nothing and then growing into a really quality side that is a contender every year. We got to see them at regionals, which was great. And so another opportunity to kind of peek in on them from June to now October and see some of the growth in that club. But you mentioned some of the depth in that roster. And again, another side that could be a really strong contender here.
Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, I think this is a little bit of a wide open as we look at it. Again, in Pool A, Seattle, Baltimore, Austin Reserve, and Columbus to go with Pool B, Boston, San Diego, DC, and Houston. Seattle again coming off of that really tight win, or that really tight final. I like Boston. I like a lot of these teams. And I'm not just saying that because I work for the league, but I think this will be good. I think this will be a really exciting, 10 games. And, we'll see. I mean, a lot of questions, especially with Austin and with Columbus as well in there. And, yeah, it should be fun, I think.
Yeah, there's a couple of clubs, Boston, San Diego, that played in Division I last year that are here. And you expect, okay, they've been seasoned a little bit by that experience. Seattle just, a sniff away from the title last year in Division II. So, there's a lot of clubs that probably have plenty of motivation here and are looking at this opportunity. Kudos to the selection committee. I think, looking at this list right here, I'm struggling mightily to split this out and pick division winners and an ultimate champion here.
Yeah, it should be fun. Can an entire division be group of death?
Be prepared for Sunday tiebreakers. I'll say that in this Division II out of either of these pools.
Trey Arnold, the national teamer said it looked like a bloodbath, and that's what made me think of group of death. All right, let's move back to the women, April, and we move on to women's Division II. These are 5 teams. This is a straight 4-game round robin. The best record wins. The first tiebreaker here, it isn't percentage, it is head-to-head. And much like Women's Division One, and much like it was last year when Quebec defeated, when North Texas and Austin banded together to defeat Quebec and North Star, the teams have to go through the same path. There's no pools, there's no nothing. It's 4 games, and whoever has the best lifts the trophy.
Right. And that's, like I said, for women's D1, it's a really exciting opportunity when every team gets to play every other team, because in that sense, you find out what is the true standing, where do we stack rank against one another, and we're using Nationals weekend to find out.
Absolutely. Well, let's find out the teams. And a reminder, these are teams that are combinations. There is the chance, of course, that these combinations may change, but as of now, here's what we have. The team that won Women's Division 2 a season ago, the Austin Crows, they'll be paired with the Portland Sockeyes, who won 2 Division 2 national actually 3. They won in 2015, 2016, and in 2017. And you look at the players that Austin are bringing, a couple of national teamers, not only for the U.S., when you look at Lindsay Terse and Barb Williamson, but also from Great Britain with Lizzie Toms, and a couple of Australian players in there. Jackie Schaefer, the former swimmer from the University of Michigan, Catherine Rowe in there. And then you look at Portland, and what I like about, and you actually played against Portland last week, the amount of talent that they have, and looking at the women that they're bringing, of course, Schnitz, Lawrence Konechny, the forward. Indigo Ao was a breakout player at the Western Regionals up in the forward line too, I think.
Yeah, a few players you didn't mention in that contingent with the Portland-Austin combo. Danny Bridges, related to Grizzlies' David Bridges, is going to be a new standout player from Austin. You've got Maddie Cordner, who was a UW rower. You've got the Sosa sisters. So a lot of athleticism in that team. Both teams are familiar with winning Division II titles, so it should be really fun team. And obviously the magical question is, how quickly can they combine to be successful as one cohesive unit?
Maddie Cordner is a football name if I've ever heard one. Austin Crows and Portland, the top seed in D2. The North Texas Devils, who were aside the Austin Crows, will be aside the team that was in the runner-up position, the Quebec Saints. They'll be accompanied by individual players from Boston, St. Louis, and Chicago. North Texas has played the 2 main players here, April. North Texas and Quebec have played 2 really different schedules. North Texas, of course, going through, playing down south. They went through and played at the Super Regionals as well, taking a look at some of their players. Emma Wewell, a.k.a. Squid, who is in the national team, who's in the national team program. Ashley Twyman, who's good as well, who I think is pretty consistent. Some new players in there, including Tiara Hernandez, Jessica Iannici. And then you come over to Quebec, and you look at some of the national players that were on the national team. I'm scrolling as fast as I can here to bring up, but just thinking of players like Isabel Kleinbub, Caroline Leduc, who played in Australia before, and there's one, Larissa Andrew-Sijan, and there's a couple of other ones in there to go alongside players from 3 other teams.
Yeah, absolutely. This should be an interesting combination, especially debut coach Livy Parsons is going to be there from North Texas, and really a challenge to see how quickly, again, they can come together, but should be a very interesting matchup.
Shout out to Livy, by the way, and she has really helped grow that team in Texas, and we'll see how they play with L'Essence, in the second seed. The third seed, the other Canadian team, the Calgary Kookaburras, alongside players from Houston, and hey, how about this? This is great news. The Baton Rouge Tigers making their women's debut. Calgary, there's not as many national teamers as in the past. I didn't recognize, I think I only recognized 1 or 2 of the names of the players that they're bringing down. I know, just taking a look at it now, Laura Baker was one who came across from Great Britain. But I would say about half and half Australians and Canadians there. If you look at Houston, they're bringing a strong side as well. You look at Erica Cormie, who's now turned into a very good veteran, Jessica Palacios, Haley Rattan, who can play in the ruck and play up front as well. And then, of course, you have Ellen McDonald, who I believe is going back to Australia. The youngster has really developed into a USAFL superstar. And then, of course, those 4 players from Baton Rouge, as well as New Orleans as well. Shout out to Will Cusack from Mussack. Sorry, Will Mussack from New Orleans, getting that program going.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to start off by saying congratulations to Baton Rouge, sending 4 people in a debut season. It's going to be fantastic experience for those players, and to combine with the likes of Houston and get some experience from Jess Stewart. And we look at new players that are going to be exciting to watch. Gabby Hall is making a debut. It's going to be a fun combination. Houston and Baton Rouge have been able to meet this year, so they're more familiar with each other, which should help with that cohesion and make them contenders in this division.
Absolutely, that will be fun. And speaking of another fun combination, how about the Sacramento Suns, winners in 2018? At the Nationals that year, alongside Orange County with a couple of Irish players, 2 players from North Star Blue Ox, and then individuals from Wasatch, Arizona, and Columbus. And you look at, in April, you look at Sacramento and the players. They've always, what's interesting to me, they've always been a very good defensive team. A lot of their players have been stout defensively. I think about Mac Adamo, who is playing another season with the Suns. Who else we have here? Elizabeth Danielson is on the roster. I think she's coming back for the first time in a couple of years. National teamer, and Christine Flock, who's very consistent in the Transatlantic Cup. Erica Titus Lay, Abby Morrissey, who was in the national team program. Lorraine Quokka, Suzanne Jarmusch, who I think very quietly impressed me at the Western Regionals out of the back line. Then you bring in as we mentioned, a couple of the Irish players from Orange County. You've got Marie LeVictor from North Star, the Wasatch Wargle in Lizzie Sawyer, who is helped Minnesota win at the Western Regionals. She's good across the back line. Another national teamer in Tracy McLean from Arizona, and then Columbus, you've got Amy Berniarski.
Absolutely. You're spot on. I mean, you've named the whole roster right there. You've gone through. I mean, Suns and Stars roster. It's good to see a lot of those veteran faces coming back out. It's a lot of experience. They will have speed. And, a little with that combination, especially some of the West Coast teams, there's a lot of familiarity with one another. And so the cohesion, you wouldn't worry about as much with this club because they get to see each other more often with this combination.
Right. And I think the other 3 players, for North Star, Marie's been around a long time. She very adaptive, very adapting. And then Rachel Erickson, who I believe played last year, and Marinella Perez, who's a rookie. And then for Columbus, Amy Berniarski, who is a Liberty player. So yeah, that you don't count out the Suns either from the 4 slot. And then rounding out in this 5 teams division is the DC Eagles. They have a couple of players from the Philadelphia Hawks, Kendall Bedford, the Media, Pennsylvania native, as well as Perth native Caitlin Tilsed. And then looking at this DC roster, they struggled at the Super Regionals. But I think they held their own during the course of the season against teams like New York, and just looking at some of their players, and there's players like Claire Connolly, who's come along since beginning with Columbus a while ago. Other players like Alex Trollope, who is I think arguably the best player of the team on this side. Marissa Mullins, who's a good American player. They picked up Courtney McGorm. I think this is her first season, one of the Australians. And then the Canberra native Stephanie Hauer, who brings a lot of speed to the midfield. The Eagles, I know, are coming in looking at how they did at the Super Regionals, where they were a little overmatched, but I think they have to look at some of these matchups and really think that they're going to be competitive in all 4 games.
Absolutely. And, they do have a strong Australian contingent. And while some of them are first year players and new to the Nationals experience, the benefit is familiarity with the sport in general. So that's one thing that, Australians certainly have a leg up on when it just comes to Australians versus Americans and looking at that. We've also got the player coach in Amy Wilson, and she'll be there supporting the team. And, we really look forward to DC continuing their growth and, excited to see the challenge at Nationals and see them step up.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing to remember as well, this was a team that they struggled for a while in their early history to bring a full side, and they've managed to do that, either a full side or a mostly full side over the last 3 seasons. So those are your 5 teams in Women's Division II. Austin with Portland, North Texas with Quebec and Friends, Calgary with Houston and Baton Rouge for the first time, Sacramento and Friends, and DC alongside Philadelphia. I mean, this will be an exciting, again, we keep saying exciting, 10 games to determine, a 10-game shootout in a sense, to determine who will win Women's Division II. Should be fun, April, and I love, I love this format, I think just as much as there's no grand final, but I love this format too.
And there's going to be no easy matches either, right? Every game is important. Every game is a priority to win, and your standing on the ladder really does matter.
Absolutely. Well, we will move on now back to Dan Sarbacker for Men's Division III. SARS Division III, again, 8 teams here and 2 pools of 4. Division III, you've played in D3 as I have. It's a quote-unquote undercard, but I'm looking at these teams as we're about to see them. And I think this one is just wide open. Let's get right into it with the top seed overall. The Chicago Swans, a team that's played, I think they've gotten more consistent over the last couple of years. They got 4.5 wins against 3 losses. They finished 6th in Division III. They did, however, win Division III of the Super Regionals alongside the Virginia Lions, D3 winners back in 2012. They're about a half and half when it comes to Australians, but they have a couple of good national players in Stu Nickel, the Scotsman. Rushil Choksima is a good player to keep an eye out for. Cooper Lee's an Australian that's come across from Golden Gate. Chicago, you're very familiar with them, having played in that Midwest circuit.
Yeah, and I finished up my club career there towards the end of my national team career. I was driving down from Madison, getting games there, and I can officially tell you, Brian, I don't recognize any names on the roster anymore. So that gives you an idea of how much has turned over and how much I've got in the rearview mirror myself. But yeah, no surprise here. Top side, big city team, big market team. And a class side in the Midwest. So we'll see if they come out on top of this division like the selectors anticipate.
Absolutely. Minnesota Freeze, a team that Chicago is very familiar with. They are in the 2nd seed in Pool A in Men's Division III. A shout out to Charlie Nelson and everybody watching in the land of 10,000 lakes. 4-3 this season, coming off a 5th place finish in Division II, making the drop down. They've won 3 Division II championships, and this is a team that over the last few years, their veterans have stuck around. Guys like Brent Fisher and Brent Mergen, Dan Stevens has as well. I really like Josh Friday, who brings a fair bit of speed. And again, you being, playing in Madison and playing in Chicago and St. Louis, very familiar with this Freeze side.
Yeah, as well. A lot of Rebel veterans here on the list. You mentioned a couple of them there, and so those guys are impact players and still really high caliber, regardless if they've retired from their international career or not. So Minnesota's a side you can't count out. They've got that depth that sometimes you need to rely on in these tournament formats. And I'd say there's probably no love lost between the Freeze and the Swans. So that's a juicy matchup at the top of that pool.
And if I remember correctly, they met in the semifinal in 2018 in that 9-team setup, and the Freeze ended up beating them en route to beating Portland in the grand final that year. Third seed in Pool A, a combination that we've seen in Division III at the Super Regional SARS. The Nashville Kangaroos alongside the Cleveland Cannons. Great to see Cleveland back at Nationals for the first time, I want to say in 7 or 8 years. Nashville this season, a record of 6 wins against 2.5 losses. Division IV champions in 2021. Won Division II a season ago at the Super Regionals with DC, or a couple seasons ago. And a fair bit of American talent. Cody McLean, who was best and fairest at that Super Regionals a year ago, a year ago. William Proctor, who was on the national team. Andrew Gleekert, the former tight end from, I didn't write it down, Michigan State, I believe. TJ Greenway, Mo Howell, who's fast, the captain, and James Duty. We saw them play, and I think we were pretty impressed. I remember us being pretty impressed by how they played against pretty even competition.
Yeah, good memory, Brian. We did. We called 2 of their games in Columbus for the regionals this year, and you'll remember you had a big milestone that day. Nashville sticks out in my head as really a dynamic side. I was really impressed. They changed their style of play entirely from game 1 to game 2, and we were on the call on both of those. And I just kept thinking to myself at halftime of that second game, like, wow, they really adjusted how they played. So I think they'll probably match up really well against anybody they're playing against. So watch out the rest of this division. I think Nashville's that dynamic team that will probably adjust to whatever you're throwing at them.
Absolutely. I think they do really well. It doesn't matter whether it's nationals, regionals, whatever. Whenever they've played with somebody, it seems like they've always had success. It doesn't matter who. They played alongside Chicago. They played alongside Cleveland, as we said before. They played alongside a number of different teams at nationals, and they always seem to perform, just gel really quickly, and it doesn't take out. It doesn't take out. We'll give a shout out to Jed Martin for the Swans as well. Thanks, Jake, for reminding us. And rounding out Pool A. Go ahead.
Brian, I mentioned no love lost. I think looking at those first 3 sides there's been some serious blood, I think, between those sides at various times over the last decade or 2. So a stacked division with the upper Midwest there with those 3 sides. So that's tantalizing.
Maffle rearing its head, rounding out in Pool A. Through the Midwestern, let's throw some desertness into this. It's the Arizona Hawks, who are combined with the Sacramento Suns reserves. Whenever you see an asterisk, by the way, over the next couple of slides, that means that we're talking about reserves. The Arizona Hawks, 1.5 wins and 3 losses. They combined with Orange County at the Western Regionals, and also combined with Orange County at last year's Nationals to finish 4th in D3. They were champions of Division III in 2011, combined with Ohio Valley to win D4 in 2019. D3 champions alongside Philly in 2021. Were runners-up on their own in 2022. You think of Ryan Ludo, Stansky, Nick Hall, Alex Fernandez, the Mexican national, and Peter Abernathy, as well as Darren Henderson. And Arizona, you have to be tough to play in Arizona in the summer, and alongside some of these experienced players from Sacramento, I think they'll give them a challenge in Pool A.
Yeah, my familiarity with this club and their schedule is they're getting games, early, like February time, and then taking off a little bit of time in the dead heat of the summer, and so. That's an interesting thing leading up to nationals. They might be a little fresher than clubs been going flat out since April or May. And you rattled off, all their appearances in finals and the divisions that they've won. Winners win, so you definitely can't count them out. They've had some success in that club in the past, and a lot of those veteran names people will recognize year after year. So throwing them in with the rest of these Midwest sides is an interesting pick. So that's a really juicy pool in this division.
Chicago, Minnesota, and then Nashville with Cleveland and Arizona with Sacramento reserves in Pool A. Pool B, kicking off with the North Texas Devils. Talk about a slow climb upward. Made their debut in 2021, didn't win a game. Won their first game at Nationals in 2022. Finished 3rd in 2023. Now they're the top seed in Pool B. They're the 2nd seed overall. The Bass brothers and Kyle and Steven, the Canterburys and Josh and Zach, Josh in the national team program. They brought in Marcus Sobel. They also have 2 former LA Dragons in Paul Locum and Justin Kenna. you look at some of these teams, and we're going to see the rest of this pool. The Devils are for real. During the course of the season, a 3-4 record, what we have, we'll see how they do. But I love them here at the top of Pool B.
100%. Brian, if you map the growth trajectory of a club like this and the way they've been growing and steadily improving every year, I think we look back at the end of nationals. If they're the one hoisting the cup for Division III, I don't think anyone's surprised. It feels like the next natural step for this club. So no shock if they come out of this pool. No shock if they take home the flag. And some quality right there, like you mentioned. That isn't a fledgling club. There's some serious veteran depth there, and so again, you often draw on that in these weekend long tournament formats. So no shock if this club runs the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you mentioned, and there's a couple of players, not a lot, but there's a couple of players who've come across from the Dallas Dingoes who sadly have gone dormant in the last couple of years. But a lot of we'll see how they go in Pool B. The second seed in Pool B. How about the Calgary Kangaroos? They came back last season, played in Division II, finished in 7th. They were D2 champions in 2009, 2010, 2016. Made it all the way to the D1 Grand Final in the Canterbury Tales. I love it. Sorry, I get distracted by the chat. Never read the chat while you're doing a live stream, Brian. This isn't Twitch. Jason Nystuen and Uday Kapila, some of the national teamers for the Northwind. Stefan Brzezinski, another Canadian national teamer. Calgary's played some of the Western teams over the course of this. We've mentioned that 4-2 record. That's against the Seattle Grizzlies as well as the Edmonton Wombats and British Columbia as well. But yeah, it's we'll see how they go. They always, again, a bit of a mystery with them.
Yeah, of all the USAFL hardware that's been won over the years, there's certainly a density of it on the eastern ranges of the Rocky Mountains. But it's not all Denver. It's a fair chunk of that from the Calgary club. Brian, you rattled off a couple of the championships they have going back to 2009. I lost to them in a Division II final one of those years, and so again, winners win, right? There's a lot of depth and strength and history with this club. They've had a lot of success at the national tournament. So Calgary's another one that I think turn up for any of their games, and you'll be thrilled with the contest that they provide. And as we've said before, minimal touch points, so it's tough to gauge how some of these clubs will go against each other. So that adds that wild card and mystery into this Pool B of Division III.
Speaking of mysteries, we mentioned that we're keeping the chat. Watching an eye on the chat. And the one thing that people have been saying is, where is LA? What happened to LA? Here they are in Pool B of Division III, alongside the Houston Lone Star Reserves. They have been hit with injuries this season, and that's a bit of it's a little sad for them. They're a team, as we mentioned, they made it to the D1 Grand Final back in 2017. Bit of a down year for them, but you look at a couple of their big players. Gabriel Martin Del Campo, who was named to the international, the Transatlantic Cup side, all side. Sam Murphy had a fantastic tournament. Donald Lee, who forcing the ruck, and if Murphy can't go, or if he can, then you'll see Lee up in the forward line. Rick Shabani as well, alongside some veterans from Houston. Again, it's sad. Hopefully we'll see LA back up front, but I think they'll match up well here in D3.
Yeah, chalk it up to an off year and some injuries. Maybe a little bit of surprise to see them fall this far, but I think a lot of us have been involved in clubs that have those cycles, right? Whether it's injuries or attrition, folks move away for jobs or whatever, life just comes at us, right? And clubs go through these cycles. So certainly no shame. Like you can win flags in any division. That's the great part. You can have an awesome nationals in whatever division you're in. And I'll tell you what, combining with the Houston reserves here, a lot of depth out of Houston. So that's a dangerous side. The names you listed, Brian, those guys are world-class footballers. And you surround them with the right type of people, and they have every bit of a chance to run the table in this group for sure.
And we'll speaking of running the table in the group, rounding out Pool B is the Philadelphia Hawks. They'll play alongside the Baltimore Dockers reserve side. Philly winning division. They've won championships in D3 in, let's see, 3 out of the last 5. Let's see, I have 18 and 21, as well as last year, the defending D3 national champions alongside the Virginia Lions to go with their championships in 02. In terms of there's a couple. There are 3 biggest players, I think, or 2 of them anyway, are there in I have it here and I've lost it. The Hinchin brothers in John and Rob, Alex Fitteru, who helped lead them to that championship in 2018. John Loring, who I know you know John Loring. He's been around since, I'm pretty sure he was kicking footballs with Tom Wills back in the day. Whenever you put Philly in there, like I said, there's a couple of players that are missing from that list, but they're going to be competitive, especially with some of those reserves from the Dockers.
Yeah, 100%. Again, a club that's got a long history, and geographically gets a lot of relatively close games in that East Coast division, and so they're seeing high caliber competition on a frequent basis. John Loring's been a stalwart there with the club and knows football about as well as anybody. So you cannot count out a club that he's involved with, and some of the talent that you rattled off. If they've got newcomers and fresh blood coming in, they're going to be trained up well. So don't sleep on them for sure.
And I'll be seeing a lot of them at Kavanaugh's tomorrow night in South Philly to watch the grand final, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. So there's your men's Division III. Chicago, Minnesota, Nashville, and Arizona in Pool A. Pool B, North Texas, Calgary, and then the LA-Houston combination, and Philly. I'm with you. My mouth waters thinking about the possibilities here. Looking at Chicago trying to get their first championship in a dozen years. North Texas looking to make some noise. Minnesota and Calgary and LA, who won D2 a couple in 2014. Nashville coming off the backs. Philly, the defending D3 champions, and Arizona. I really like this.
Yeah, looking at the top of that first pool A there, the density of the Midwest clubs that are going to be familiar with each other already. I don't want to say there's bad blood, but there's history. There's history with those clubs. And in complete contrast, I think Pool B in Division III is the most geographically diverse pool in the entire tournament, all divisions considered. So those clubs probably have no idea what they're going to see coming against them, and then we're going to get a grand final out of that, and we're going to get a champion out of that. So just a juicy division to look at. It'll be really fun to see some of the results.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll see how that goes down leading up to the grand final on Sunday afternoon. All right, we're going to move on to the last 2 divisions in. We have Division 4 and Division 5, and we will go through these a little bit quicker. I appreciate everybody hanging with us for the last hour plus. I know we've got a few folks down in Florida and in the South who are looking at who are looking across. Who are got the hurricane coming. Let's take a look at the 8 teams in men's Division 4, beginning with the Denver Bulldogs reserves, team that won Division 3 a couple of years ago and also combined with Wisconsin to win the Super Regionals back in 2022. Second seed overall, the combination of the Orange County Giants alongside the Seattle Grizzlies, Jack Butler and company with the Giants. And dropping down to D4 after being up in D2 a season ago. And the third seed, well, it's the old Ohio Valley getting back together with St. Louis, Cincinnati, and Louisville playing alongside Wisconsin, who won D4 a season ago alongside Jacksonville. We'll see the Saints in just a moment, but we'll get some thoughts from SARS in a moment because I know he's played for at least 2 of those clubs, and I know he's familiar with the other 2 as well. Oh, there's the Saints right there. They're playing alongside the Golden Gate the Golden Gate Ruse reserves. Jacksonville with Jack Wilcox, who won best and fairest at or I think he won either that or the Jeff Can medal, and that rounds out Pool A. So Pool A. Over in Pool B, two teams that know each other very well in the Midwest region: the Des Moines Roosters alongside the Kansas City Power. Think of Caleb Doherty and the Power alongside Jacob Spain, alongside let's see who else they have. I've completely lost the number, the guys there. Jacob Gross as well, and Josh Curtis. That was the third player alongside Zach Vanderplug. They are the top seed in Pool B, a very determined side, and they look to get their first national championship, I think, since they won D4 in 2012. The Portland Steelheads, Martin Coventry and company, winners of Division III 2 years in a row in 2014 and 2015. They're the second seed in Pool A, coming off of a fighting performance in Division II. Fort Lauderdale taking on alongside the Wasatch Wargulls. Fort Lauderdale, winners of the Florida Cup back in April. Wasatch put together their hosting the Western Regionals. They played alongside Portland. They played pretty strongly in that tournament. The Cruz family, all four of them, Luke Cruz and company, that they pretty much make up half the contingent for the men in the teal and the gray. And then rounding out the Division III runners-up from a season ago, Oklahoma alongside Austin C. That's right. Those are the Austin reserves. And the Rasbolds and company from the Oklahoma Buffaloes rounding out this Division 4. And SARS, Division 4, and one of the reasons why we've gone through it, and we'll mention, we apologize that we don't have the logos up for D4 and D5, and that's because the combinations have just been so fluid, and unfortunately we ran out of time. We will have those when we do the schedules. D4, and in this case D5, which we'll get into, is always fun because, especially in this case, a lot of combinations.
Yeah, you get down to this division, and there's a couple of dynamics at play here. You've got some reserve sides, often of those Division I clubs that have big player rosters, but you also have these combine teams. And what you get with those are often the best players at those clubs. They maybe aren't deep enough. They maybe are playing a lot of games with 12 or 14, or they're combining to get games of 18 when they're traveling through the season. But at nationals, and in particular, I'm looking at that St. Louis, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, Louisville side, you're probably getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 best players from any one of those clubs, combining with the best 2, 3, 4 players from those other clubs. And so if those types of clubs can gel quickly, they can do a lot of damage in a tournament. It's a toss-up, right? And how well do the sides with the reserves teams travel? If someone pulls out, they're bolstering the rosters up in their Division I or Division II sides. They're certainly not doing that with the reserve side. So the reserve sides could end up a little light if some travel mishaps happen. So, flip a coin on any of these games, but these often are a lot of fun to watch. St. Louis and the Wisconsin Wombats, the two most recent Division IV winners, combining this year. I know I'm tooting their horn, but a bit of familiarity, but also some recent premierships there. So, flip a coin, Brian.
Yeah, you absolutely could. So yeah, and D4, I think, is always, you have to look at the full team. So Denver and Portland, but we have seen instances where that's been bucked. Look at last year, of course, it was mostly combined sides in Division 4. So there's Division 4. Now I mentioned Division 5, and I see perhaps a little bit of disappointment from a couple of folks that they're going to be in Division 5, but it's 14 a side, and that will be really fun to watch because I think it'll be a little bit more open. The field will be a little bit smaller, but I think it'll be a little bit more open and a little bit more exciting. 6 teams in this group. This will work, or in this division, it'll work the same way as men's Division 1. 2 groups of 3 with the top 2 advancing to the semifinals. Let's run through Pool A. There are the North Carolina Tigers with Trey Yarnell and company. The Tigers with Eric Hansen, Keith Phillips as well. Some good talent and a lot of action in that southeast part of the country. The North Texas Devils reserves. We mentioned Tim Dignas a little bit earlier. I believe he's on that roster. We'll have to see how it goes. And the Devils looking to play might end up with a rare double. We'll see how they go in Division 5. And then, how about the Baton Rouge Tigers? They are bringing their largest contingent, 20 players. And again, Will Mussack and the Bayou Brawlers out of New Orleans helping to bolster the numbers. And congratulations to them. And again, in addition to the 4 women, they round out Pool A. In Pool B, the Virginia Lions, they've already won a championship. They've actually won 2 national championships. Darren Green was there in 2021 alongside Philadelphia and Arizona. The Lions, in a lot of numbers, were there a season ago to help Philadelphia. Well, they won alongside Philadelphia in 2023, and they have really looked good this season. And if they get more players for nationals next year, don't be surprised to not see them up in Division 3. There is that Georgia, and we're claiming Birmingham, Alabama as part of Georgia for this. The Rome Redbacks, Atlanta Kookaburras, the Birmingham Bushrangers, and the Savannah Hurricane. Of course, Wayne Kraska really, I would say, wholly responsible for the foundation and the strength of all of those teams. Justin Ward, who, of course, is in there as well. That's right. I'm sorry. They have a chance for a treble. The Devils. I forgot about that with Austin. But anyway, Rome, Atlanta, Birmingham, and Savannah. Of course, Justin Ward and the Savannah Hurricane. And rounding them off, we have the New York reserves alongside a player from the Los Jaguares de Colombia who has come in and play and here in Division 5. As we mentioned, SARS 14 aside. Yeah, but you know what? I like this because all of these teams are familiar. By and large, their whole sides. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Brian, if I could, I'd rename Division 4 and Division 5 so it didn't look hierarchical. Of all the kind of tweaks and things that have happened over the years, I am most excited about this concept. When I heard about this, I was chatting with Doran at regionals, and they were batting around this idea of having a division where clubs could largely play as their own club, not have to combine, play a 14-a-side game. I think that is fantastic. I think it'll be so good for the development of clubs to have a division that they can play in as themselves, not have to gel with another team to add to the complexity of trying to navigate a tournament. So I am so pumped for this division. I think this is a really, really fun format. And the inaugural winner here will probably go on and say, look, yeah, we were the first to win the 14-a-side division. And I hope this sticks around at nationals. I hope it grows because I think this is fantastic for the growth of the game across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And
or should I say world? We've got Columbia in this division.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's it'll be exciting. I think it'll be fantastic to see what comes out of this. So we'll see what happens. And so that's it here for Men's Division 5. That's it. Those are all 5 divisions. Let's run through them one more time just for in case anybody has come in late. Men's Division 1, Pool A, it's Austin Crows, New York Magpies, and the Quebec Saints. In Pool B, Denver, Golden Gate, and Sacramento. Each of the top 2 teams will advance to the semifinals in that. In the Women's Division 1, Minnesota, Golden Gate, Seattle, and that convo of Denver and New York. The four teams, again, playing in a round robin. The top 2 will go to the final as Golden Gate chases their 8th championship, and Minnesota and those other 2 teams try and stop them. In Men's Division 2, Sacramento, Baltimore, Austin Reserve, and Columbus in Pool A. Boston, San Diego, D.C., and Houston in Pool B. In Women's Division 2, Austin, North Texas, Calgary, Sacramento, and D.C. Those are the flagship sides. In Men's Division 3, Pool A, Chicago, Minnesota, Nashville, and Arizona. Pool B, North Texas, Calgary, L.A., and Philadelphia. Men's Division 4, Denver Reserves, Orange County with Seattle Reserves, St. Louis, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, Louisville, and Golden Gate and Jacksonville. Over in Pool B, Des Moines and Kansas City, Portland on their own, Fort Lauderdale and Wasatch, and Oklahoma with Austin C Team, and the 14-a-side Men's Division 5, North Carolina, North Texas, Baton Rouge, Virginia, Rome, Atlanta, Birmingham, Savannah, and both New York reserves with the 1 player from Columbia. Oh, goodness. Let's but before we get it, I'm excited for a fantastic weekend. Before we wrap up, and there's a couple of things we want to touch on real quickly. Firstly, we mentioned the international program, which undertook its current form at the end of the Parallel Cup last season. And before we talk to SARS, we've been hearing from him for a while. I want to hear from the president of the USAFL, April Munn. You participated in this as a player and obviously have looked on from it as the president. What are your thoughts, after a year where there was a lot of buildup, both the men's and women's teams made it to the grand final? I'd like to hear your thoughts about the international program.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time coming to just get the opportunity to play international football. And the Transatlantic Cup saw a team come together in a very short amount of time. New faces on both the men's and women's teams within the international program, but having to participate in a 10-day tournament with games every other day gave an opportunity for the teams to get to know each other better, get some familiarity, and just get back to, competition, because we've been lacking that since International Cup in back in 2017, with the exception of our neighboring Canadian rivalry. But really just a great opportunity to play football, have some international relations with other countries, and super exciting to be part of the team that had the most successful showing in international competition to date.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And SARS, as you come into this now, you saw what you saw really the progress that had been made so quickly. What are your thoughts as we come into, we're still obviously trying to figure out what's next, whether or not it's a tour of Australia, maybe perhaps a tri-series, maybe with Colombia and Canada, or another iteration of the Parallel Cup, looking for what's this. What are your thoughts as you come into this program?
How many hours do we have left, Brian?
Some of us do have to go to bed.
Yeah. To try to make it succinct, I've been in the role, I think officially like 72 hours now. So, a couple sleeps and some of the ideas are starting to congeal a little bit. But April alluded to this, right? COVID was massively disruptive, and I look at the men's program that's been around 2.5 decades. The women's program, about a decade behind that when it formed, and the growth trajectories that those programs were on were very much halted by that disruption. And so to get back on track, I think as you're sitting and looking at that picture there, it doesn't do justice to the amount of upheaval that the programs and these players and the coaching staffs went through to get to this, to get a picture taken together at an international tournament. And so I'm just kind of in awe looking at that shot of the two sides. And so congrats to Kyle Strensky and Andrew Donlin, the Revo and Freedom coaches, making the finals. Kyle was playing with me in 2005, was the last time we had beaten Ireland. They beat Ireland in pool play. Andrew took this side, within just a sniff of winning this tournament, extra time for the women in the finals. So the results speak for themselves, but what the results don't tell you is how hard the journey's been over the last couple of years. So you asked where my thoughts are, Brian. I think, one, we want to keep momentum going. Two, we realize that the AFL and the pattern we were on with the International Cup cycle, and that being a really dependable target, is not as dependable as we thought. I was fortunate enough to play in 4 of them, coach in a 5th, and we were gearing up, would have been the 6th one I attended, to coach again in 2020 when COVID hit. And the AFL struggled to fit that into their international strategy. And I think what we need to do in the strategy for the international program is to set longer term visions. Maybe the IC is part of that journey then to get to that vision. But we want to take more control, take the reins of our own destiny, so to speak. And you mentioned just a couple of opportunities that are rumors or getting discussed. But we want to provide high-level international competition opportunities for these players. We want to provide pathways for developing players to get into the national team program, get looks from coaches, crack into the senior side. We want to get the best coaches in the country that are connected to footy in the USA to help out. We want to wrap these programs in the athletes and the coaches in layers of support so that the events are more seamless. They've got access to the development that they need as players. So I'm rattling off a ton of stuff. We're really ambitious, but we want to be. And so I'm just at the onset. I'm going to do a ton of listening to folks that are involved and have been involved about ways we can get better and things we want to try to accomplish. So right now I've got the radar dish up and I'm picking up as much signal as I can from people that are involved.
And I do want to mention, since Dalton Foster of Dalton St. Louis Blues brought this up, the reserve sides, as well, that went up to Canada and played against the Canadian reserves on Saturday. And also, I mean, the reserves part as well. And I know that the more people we can get involved, not just the senior team as well, I know that's on your radar as well. So listen, congratulations. I don't know of very many people in the USAFL who are more deserving of this role, and I look forward, from a personal standpoint, I look forward to working with you. I know that you're one of the most knowledgeable people in the league, not only when it comes to the sport, but also everybody else. One last thing before we go. There is a little game that's happening late tomorrow. It is the AFL Grand Final. It will actually be happening on Saturday at 12:30 in the morning on the East Coast. That is 11:30 Central, 10:30 Mountain, and 9:30 Pacific time. On our website, on USAFL.com, is a list of more than 24 clubs across the country who are either showing the game live or are watching delayed watch parties, literally from coast to coast, from Portland, Maine to Seattle, and from LA all the way to the East Coast as well. And our friends at Odin Mortgage are giving away a USAFL branded football. You see that little QR code on there. You scan that, you can register and win yourself an officially branded USAFL football. I need to know for the two of you before we sign off. I don't know. I mean, take a guess. Sydney or Brisbane? April, we'll start with you.
Up the mighty Lions. I have Lions by 8 on my fact sheet.
Ooh, I like that. It even gave a score. SARS?
I cannot pick a team, Brian. I have gone back and forth all week. I watched the prelims. We've got connection points and folks we know in both these organizations, and I go back and forth. I am right up. I'm hoping to see a great game. I'm going to be happy with whoever wins.
Me too. I just want both teams to have a good time.
They're both coming into great form, so this could just be an absolute ripper.
I don't have the Lions, anything with Lions on it. I do have a Sydney Swans Indigenous jumper that was given to me by somebody in the league, by Sonny Lavelle. We'll yeah, you're awesome, Sonny. I don't know. I mean, I feel like Sydney has had the form all year, but I bet you it's going to be less than a goal. I think it's going to be exciting right down to the very end. But yeah, and of course, if you can't make it out, you can watch the game on Fox Sports 1, or you can get a subscription to Watch AFL. If you don't have one already, you can get one for they're, of course, one of our sponsors in this tournament. And that will do it. We appreciate everybody for sticking around, and really just some last thoughts. April, from you, this is, I want to tell you, by the way, and I don't care. I've worked with April for the last year as president, her first year as president. You've done an amazing, amazing job, not just, steering through the normal stuff of this season, but also helping to organize everything. And you've done such an amazing job, yeah, this Nationals and this end of season, I think, is going to be really memorable, and I know you feel the same way.
I mean, this is my flagship experience leading and helping with the organization of the Nationals tournament. But, it's I can speak for myself, everyone else on the board, Doran James, the executive director, all of our sponsors, everyone's put so much work into the planning and the facilitation of this event. I can't be more excited to be a part of it. And yeah, truly the first time experience, right? Like, certainly there are times when it's a bit hectic, but I'm really looking forward to, you know, being in the leadership role at my first nationals in this position. It will be very different than my first nationals as a player, but couldn't be more excited about it and to see how it all comes together. And can't wait to be on the ground in Austin and just to get there and see it come to fruition.
Me too. This will be my 5th time in Austin. This will be my 17th nationals. Yeah. By the way, all of you complaining about the meat pies, the 3 of us, we don't know about the meat pies yet. So we'll forward on and we'll get back to you about the meat pies. Anyway, Sars, last word from you.
I don't have to preach to veterans about this, Nationals veterans, how great the event is, but to new first timers, welcome to an awesome weekend. I don't even know, with 5 men's divisions, 2 women's divisions, Doran might be running 7 ovals. I mean, take a breath for 1 second when you're in the middle of all that and just like spin 360 degrees and see how much football is going on. It's the largest football carnival in the world. What an awesome event. Thank a board member if you run into them or meet one, because it's an enormous amount of work to put this on. I think they do a great job seeding the teams. Hopefully everyone's sort of licking their chops at the ranking they got and the pool they got and getting ready to go for the weekend. Thank the sponsors if you come by them, because this doesn't happen without them. But just sit and wonder at how amazing the event is as you look around at some point in the weekend when you got a quiet moment. And when you don't, have a red hot go.
Yeah. I was going to say, this is the one weekend where you just kind of go, nonstop for the next for 2 days straight, and thoroughly enjoy it. Well, April, Sars, thank you so much for analyzing this. I know we're all excited for nationals. We hope you'll join us. If you're in town, you're getting there, remember to join us at Meanwhile Brewing on Friday night for the welcome function. Friday night, October 11th, and of course the ball up for the first of 80 games on October the 12th at Onion Creek Soccer Complex. Thank you to the Sars. Thank you, April, once again, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
And of course, our thanks to all of you for joining us. Until we meet in Austin in 2 weeks' time, this is Brian Barrish wishing you a pleasant good evening.